This is Abnormal Entertainment.
2, 3, 4. Walked into the tunnel just to find the light. Hunted for old demons, looking for a fight. Looked up at the stars, seemed to go forever. There must be a way, it all fits together. Fell into the quicksand, held on to the vines. Never could quite color, stay within the lines. Feels like I have wings, I can fly wherever. This is just a way, it all fits together. Finally saw the world through rose-colored glasses. Gonna share my journey to small and large masses. Give up on my life, no sir, me never. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel Garza, and welcome to another episode of Put It Together. I'd like to start as usual thanking my producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Inviting everybody to check us out at abnormalentertainment.com, where you can find all the shows in the network. Also, check us out on Facebook at Put It Together Podcast, where you can find information on my guests, videos, music, everything that they're doing, plus all the shows. So go check us out on that. Today, I'm excited, and I will confess I'm geeking out. It's like a fan day for me. Welcome, Jarom. How you doing?
I'm good.
Jarom Smith, who's a public speaker.
Yeah.
Entertainer.
Yes.
Yes. Did I say that right?
Well, actually, Jarom Smith.
Jarom Smith. Oh, okay.
Common mistake, though.
I said it in Spanish. I was making you international.
That's what it was. That was good.
Jarom. Okay, cool. I like that better. Okay, we'll go with that.
Okay, yeah, sure. As long as you're okay with it.
Yeah. Tell your mom it's cool. We were sitting here before in the pre-interview talking about how I found you, and my recollection is I saw you on somebody else's page. Somebody had your video posted, and you were talking about depression and stress, and it caught my attention. And I was like, who is this dude? Okay, well, first I was like, oh, he's kind of cute. What is he talking about? What's he talking about? And then I was like, oh, wow. And that was during a time when I was going through a lot of depression problems. I was released... I was coming out of my cancer and my ostomy stuff, and I didn't really feel like anybody understood my depression, because it was my depression. It wasn't like anybody else's depression. It was mine, and nobody got it. And then you started talking, I was like, oh, this dude gets it. Wait a minute. And I told you, I think I immediately wrote you or messaged you or something like, I want you on my show. Get over here. But it took us about a year to make this work out.
Yeah.
So I don't want to break down. I'll wait till the end to say my thank yous. But welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
So glad to be here. This is fun.
I finally let you talk. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good, actually. This has been a very refreshing weekend, so I feel pretty great.
Yeah? You are a busy dude.
Yeah. I didn't really... sometimes people say like, "Oh, you must be really busy." I guess I am. I guess I stay pretty busy.
What are you working on right now?
Right now, this is actually kind of my slower season, so I have some more time to do a little bit more of the entertainment side of things that I do. As soon as August comes, though, I am completely slammed with the public speaking, the events. I do a lot of events at elementary schools,
Nice.
Fundraising events, things like that, and so I get pretty. Summertime is my time to do whatever I want.
Now, we'll talk about this, but you do have some projects coming up. I saw like a little trailer online.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, actually, you're probably referring to Candid,
yes.
The show. Yeah, so Candid actually came out about a year ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Candid was, but it's now right now it's on Amazon Prime. we are releasing it as a YouTube series. Me and the people that I work with haven't really utilized YouTube enough, and so that's kind of what we're doing.
Join the club. Join the club. I did learn some secrets last week on YouTube, so
good.
I'll share some stuff with you on some websites and stuff that help you with YouTube and how to tag stuff and how to promote stuff better. So I'll tell you about that. Yeah,
sounds great.
It's going to help my page too. Okay, well, let's get started with your story.
Sure.
So, Jarom,
Yes.
tell us how you put it together.
All right. Well, I would say I learned a lot in the school years, like my elementary school years. I've always noticed that I'm a person that likes to observe behavior and kind of take a mental note of behavior in my head. And I always wondered. I remember as a kid, I was actually in elementary school. I was actually one of these cool kids, right? And then as soon as I hit middle school, which is, as I'm sure you know, as everybody knows, is a horrible time. Middle school is a time of insecurity, coming of age, and trying to figure out who you are. And so, as people are insecure, they're often not very nice. I never really understood that. As a kid, I always wondered, because I got bullied in 6th grade, and even a little bit in 7th and 8th grade. It wasn't until 9th grade that I finally figured it out. But I noticed, I always wondered why people were mean to each other. Why, if somebody made fun of me or picked on me or threatened me or something like that, I always wondered why that was. Like, what is going on in their heads that justifies that? Does that make them feel good? And then, I think it was around 7th grade, I noticed that I had done it sometimes. That sometimes I had made fun of somebody. I remember one time I did it. And it was because I wanted to look cool, and I felt horrible. Yeah. And it was a kid that a lot of people made fun of, and he kind of acted like it didn't bother him, but I know it did. And I immediately went and apologized, and I said, I don't know why I did that. I am so sorry. Like anybody else my age, I wanted to fit in, I think, but that wasn't. I kind of decided that's not the way I want to do it.
Right.
Then comes 9th grade. I didn't know why. This was all. I think 7th and 8th grade, my self-esteem had been so bashed because I kind of what kids do is that here I was as a young child feeling really good about myself, had a lot of friends, and then I was kind of put in this class full of kids that didn't feel good about themselves. They were very. I don't want to be rude, but they were from a lower income, lower socioeconomic state, and oftentimes not all the time, of course, but often that means that their parents aren't as loving or responsible. It's just kind of the pattern that we see, and so I got put in that class because there wasn't enough room in the class that I was in that had a lot of my friends, and I got torn apart. I got torn apart, and around the time that 8th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade came around, I was already I already believed it. I believed what they said. I am a loser. I am weird. I am weak, or whatever they wanted me to believe. And then in 9th grade, I continued with that same belief of this is just kind of where I am. I need to make friends with other people who are lonely and misfits like me, and so I did.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Between the cool stage and then the not cool stage, can you think of something that happened that, something that people would have noticed that, okay, I'm not.
That's weird. Yeah, I can't. Something that would have maybe there was. I think it was just little tiny attacks at a time. Just Jarom, you little attacks at a time, like Jarom, you're stupid, or I'm gonna beat you up, or something like that, or I'll bet you. I don't remember what the insults were now, but but
the bullies are looking for a small crack, and they open it up, and everybody just goes
sure.
Right?
I was a very confident kid, and I think that they saw that, and that doesn't. I think when they see that kind of a thing, that's what they want to attack is the confidence. So they'll do anything to tear it down.
and then the mob mentality kicks in, and everybody joins in.
For sure. Now, at that point, believe it or not, in sixth grade, if it were where I am now, I can see that it wouldn't have been that bad. But as a sixth grader,
Yeah.
I believed the loudest voice in the class, or the loudest voice in whatever. I still had tons of friends up in my class on the other side, but I wasn't around them anymore. I was around these kids that were always attacking me.
You were on the wrong side of the wall.
Right. And I had friends in that class, but it didn't matter. It still, I still believed the loudest voice, which is often what we do. We forget about all the strengths we have, or I forgot about all the talent I had, and all the, and that people thought I was really funny and things like that. And I just believed these. If you really like thinking about it now, I can only think of like 4 that were really doing it, but it was enough to change my belief about myself.
Yeah, we tend to believe the negative way more than the positive. Yeah. So then, high school.
High school was a great time. So this is what I remember thinking about it in ninth grade, and I thought to myself, I was doing acting, and I was doing theater work, and when I was over there, again, it was me, it was myself, I was popular, and people liked me, and I was getting awards, and I was doing a good job. And even in my church group, it was the same thing. They liked me, and I remember thinking about that and thinking, why is it that over here I'm the big cheese, and then when I come over here, I'm suddenly this weak person, and I suddenly realized, I'm like, well, I've known these people for years, and they're very nice, and I've known these people for years, and they're very nice. It's because I'm being myself. Woo, Sesame Street. And really, I know that we hear that all the time, be yourself, but really, people don't necessarily attack a person because of them, or because of that person. They attack a person because they don't just attack a random person or bully a random person because they just choose to. They attack that person because they see a weakness, and that weakness makes them feel a little bit of shame about themselves. That's why often bullies will attack people that have maybe an insecurity that they have, because they recognize that in them, and then it makes them think about it in themselves, so they attack it.
That resonates very strongly. I was very aware of my sexuality in grade school.
Yeah.
This is in Texas, and my bullies were also my neighbors, which were also my abusers. So they would sexually harass me, but then they would bully me in front of people to cover it up. But they were the only friends I had in the neighborhood.
Right.
So I was like, well, what else do I do? My mom was like, go hang out with the kids. And I'm like, great. Like, okay.
It's funny how often we get stuck in that situation. Even in my adult life, I've been stuck in that situation where it's like, well, these are horrible friends, but they're the only friends I have.
Yeah, not that I have horrible friends right now.
Right.
But, we're covering our butts. Not right now. Not you guys.
Yeah, just so you guys know.
No.
I know my friends now.
The other friends. But when you were at that age, you didn't have that revelation, or did you?
I did.
Oh, you did?
So, well, this is kind of... I think it was actually... no, it was 9th grade, I believe. 9th or 10th grade. But I was... funny place where I actually had that revelation was... and I had actually been praying a lot. I had really been just wondering. I said, what is it that makes me... to these people, what is it that makes me so attacked? And like, what am I doing that makes them not like me so much? Actually, it was one day I was walking with a friend, and I was going over to where we usually eat lunch, and out of nowhere, a banana hits me in the head. Out of nowhere. And it came from a group of these people that I was just kind of trying to play around. I was trying to just not make a big deal out of it and trying to make light of it. But a group of these people that I didn't really realize were trying to bully me, but they were, and I didn't really, I had just started to kind of realize they were doing that. This banana comes and hits me in the head, and I look over at my friend, and everyone in this section of the school is laughing. They are, and I wasn't even that bullied at this point. This is my freshman year. Yeah, this is my freshman year of high school, and I just see them all over there, and they are all just cracking up. just cracking up. And so I'm like, well, this is devastating. This is absolutely devastating. So I said goodbye to my friend, and I went over to where I usually eat lunch with my other friends. Unfortunately, I went to go eat lunch with my other friends who were friends of those guys. So we always ate lunch kind of near each other. And so finally, I mean, they're still going off. I'm like, I can't. I'm like, I'm about to burst out in tears. I'm like, I can't stay here. So I was like, all right. I just told my friend, I was like, all right, I gotta go. I was like, I gotta go. I turned the corner and I start bawling. Here I am, this 14-year-old kid, and I just have this backpack on, and I'm like, I don't even know where I'm gonna go because all of my friends eat lunch by them. I'm like, I had no idea. I was like, I can't go back. I'm like, I can never go back. Really cool thing. A lot of girls came over from that group, and they said, we are so sorry, and they're like, they actually didn't mean to hit you. Somebody threw a banana, and it happened to hit you in the head. And I just started crying again. You know how it is when you're already vulnerable, and somebody shows you compassion. I was like, I'm sorry, I appreciate it. I'm like, I gotta go. And I found some other friends that I knew. And it was around that time that I really wanted to figure it out. I'm like, what am I doing that is offensive or annoying or worthy of this kind of treatment? Not that anything is worthy of that kind of treatment.
Right.
But so I remember one day, and this is after a few days of really thinking about it and praying about it and really wanting to understand more about it. One day I'm at a urinal. And I'm just thinking about it, and I'm in the bathroom. And while I'm in the bathroom, I think to myself, I'm like, it's because I'm not being myself. It's because I'm showing them that I am worthy of this attack, and that I'll take it.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the biggest aha moments in my life, that I was displaying behavior that told them, that communicated to them that I'm an easy target. And that I am weak, and that I am a sorry, sad person, and they believed it. And when people are insecure about themselves, that they do one of two things: either they're going to close inside of themselves, and they're gonna become quiet, and they're gonna stay away from people, or they're going to attack people.
Yeah.
And that's what they chose to do. That's how they dealt with their insecurity, and I hope that they've overcome it and that they feel better about themselves now. This was how I dealt with my insecurity. So I walked out of that bathroom. It's amazing where you can find. This is the same bathroom where somebody almost gave me a swirly. I was ready for it. I was small, but I was wiry. I was like, if you guys want to try this, I'll go right now. They decided not to do it. They chickened out, which is a good thing. I say chicken out. You guys couldn't do it. No, swirlies are never
That's
good.
That's right. You better run.
I was like 5'2". Yeah.
I'm a chicken hawk.
Don't scratch your eyes. and so I walked out of that bathroom just feeling so good, and feeling just like, what have I been doing for the last 4 years or 3 years or however long it took for me to finally figure it out, put it together. Yeah. And I walked out of there, and I just held my head up high, and I was like, I don't care. I really genuinely don't care. Because I didn't do anything wrong. And yes, and if I did do something wrong, I don't care. I'm gonna figure it out. I don't need to worry about any of those people. I'm gonna ignore those people. And immediately, the first thing that happened when I walked out was some guy, kind of maybe one of those desert looking guys, like back in the early 2000s, where it was like, the big black gauges and like the stars and straps,
Got it.
It looked maybe a little bit rough around the edges, at least for a high schooler. And I walked out of there, and he offered me a sandwich. He's like, "Hey, bro, you want a sandwich?" I was like, "No, thanks, but I appreciate it." To where,
what's in it?
Yeah, you trying to kill me? I'm like, it's still real nice,
I don't do mayo. I gotta have mustard. Yeah, I got it.
I choose. I'm like, is it like chicken salad or like what? I wasn't hungry, but I was just like, I'm on top of the world. I'm like, I walk out with this new revelation. I get offered a sandwich. Obviously, something's working.
Yeah, but isn't a lot of us, as guys, as kids, we need that one moment where you know the odds are against you, and you might not make it out unharmed, but you have to put your feet firm on the ground and go, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Like, I'll take it. Because I was bullied, and the restrooms for some reason were just. And for the ladies listening, that is where we go to think.
It's a great thing.
Standing at the urinal is a great, because there's a no talking code, so you're kind of on your own mind, and that's where you usually give it up when you're a kid. Looking back now, do you feel like that was your spiritual growth, like a spiritual growth moment?
That was a spiritual growth moment, and it was a big one. It was definitely a big one, mostly because it wasn't just. I mean, we look at this and we think it's about like a kid not being bullied, and that's not the case. This was about making an about face to self-discovery and self-evaluation, because up until that point, I had never really looked at myself in a vulnerable way and said, "What am I doing wrong?" Because there were things that I was doing wrong. It's selfish to stay that weak, because how am I supposed to help somebody else if how am I supposed to go out and help somebody else if I'm always worried about how I'm feeling and always worried about me and what people think of me? When I got to the point to where I stopped caring about how inadequate I was, and there are inadequacies in me now, and there were then, but when I stop focusing on them, I can go out and help somebody else. And that's another revelation of itself, is being a tool to help somebody else, and how that helped me overcome my own weaknesses.
Yeah.
That weakness of not feeling good about myself or whatever it was became a strength. And I think every weakness is meant to become a strength, and that's why we have them. School, I went through the rest of high school becoming more and more aware of what I did to offend or to annoy somebody else, and as I did, I increased in friends. It was actually a complete pendulum swing to where I wanted to be was right in the middle. The pendulum swing actually swung me over to pride for a little bit, and then I kind of found my way.
Because for the people listening and watching, when we're talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, when we're talking about where was I wrong, it's not that you're wrong, that there's something wrong with you, what's going on, is that I feel there's always something we can improve on. There's always something that we can do a little better, go the extra mile for.
Yeah.
Not that you're wrong, and I'm not saying...
Or that there's something wrong with
you. I'm not sitting here criticizing him. What was wrong with you as a kid? Why did everybody hate you? No, it's just you have to start figuring out, and some people do it when they're kids, some people do it when they're adults.
Yeah.
But I feel like I need to, I'm not constantly picking at myself, but I'd spend some time going, hey, where have you faltered a little bit? Where are you off the road? Where are you not centered? Let's work on that and get you back on track. We're not right all the time.
And what doesn't lead to success?
Because I think we live right now in a society where we want to think, I'm right all the time.
Yeah.
We're all right.
That's such a horrible way to live.
Isn't it? Like,
it's so much pressure.
Everybody's against me. Everybody's blocking me. I'm not progressing because of somebody else. Somebody took my parking space. Somebody has 16 items in the 15 outline. The world is totally against me. But what am I doing? I can't be the denominator. Yeah. And everybody else is crazy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's not your job, and that's a lot of pressure. You know, that's a lot of pressure. I definitely am the kind of person that likes to please everyone, and even now, if I feel like I have offended or hurt or turn somebody off, that's kind of I go back to that nerd, you know, and by nerd, that's another word I use for like going back to that old me. I got that phrase from another company that I worked with. Anyway, but they call it the nerd. You go back to the insecure self. And nerd can take many forms. Sometimes that takes you talk really loud because you want to sound smart. Sometimes that means that you make fun of other people because you want to feel strong. Either way, that nerd is your insecure self and the exhibition thereof.
I'm sarcastic. I start making light of things.
Yeah.
I was doing an interview for Suicide, Yeah. We were doing an interview on suicide, and they were interviewing me, and I was making light of it because that's what I do in uncomfortable situations. And the host was not having it. He was just like, kept correcting me, and I was like, "Oops, this is not the place to be mean."
You're not the only one. You're not the only one to tell me that. Yes, I've met a few people that say, "Yeah, when I get uncomfortable, I start laughing and making jokes about things that aren't funny."
Yeah, I get morbid, and it's not funny.
We have a defense mechanism. Everyone does. I do uncomfortable laughing. It sounds like machine gun. That's exactly.
But I will say, I'm watching you for a while. You have such a funny way of something's going off, and it's kind of adorable to watch you like fumble through situations to get where you need to go, and you're like, okay, we're here, and then you just get red. Because I remember watching several times where like you're trying to connect and the internet wasn't working or something, and then you finally get on and your face would just be red, and you're like, da da da, hi guys,
yeah, and the little head shake.
Do you ever find that people just genuinely don't care that you made mistakes? People don't worry about it.
And I think people are less likely to care about it if I'm being vulnerable about it. Now, unfortunately, there are some things that I can't be completely vulnerable about because people won't understand. People won't get it. They won't fully. You know, if I show that I don't know what I'm talking about in some kind of way, then people lose trust in that. They don't understand that everybody has. Everyone has an issue, or everyone has a. Everyone has a weakness, or everyone makes mistakes. But I do try to be as vulnerable as I can because I think that people need. I think we have a lack of it. We have a major lack of vulnerability in our, and that's what's causing so many problems.
Do you think as men, we have a bigger, as I say, load? That's an odd way to say it. Do you think as men we feel that we have a bigger responsibility to not be vulnerable and break down? And
I would say when it comes to vulnerability, I see it more in men. Yeah, I do see it more. Women will often, I notice their insecurity displayed in a different way. With men, with women, for example, their biggest fear is to not be. One of their biggest fears, I should say, is to not be pretty. They want to feel thin. They want to feel pretty. They want to feel like they're doing something, and that's because of just the way that our culture works. And then for men, it's the fear of not being manly, the fear of not being strong, the fear of not being able to provide. For the most part, anyway, from what I've noticed. And so oftentimes that means that we shut off vulnerability because in our society, which I think is totally false, in the American society and often in most Western cultures, actually it's very prominent around the world, this fear of not fulfilling what we feel is the manly role, which is to provide and to protect. But you go to Africa and you see men holding hands. Like what that display of definition of what masculinity is kind of changes when you go other places. Yeah. And so that's a big fear for men. And often it's changing a little bit now, but often that means that they feel that the display of emotion is a lack of masculinity, and that's not the case. In fact, it breeds more emotional problems.
Yeah, and oddly enough, it carries across sexualities.
And generations. Yeah,
from straight to gay, I still feel the urge. Like when I have girlfriends of mine hanging out, and I was like, I am the man. Woman, you, me, man.
Yeah.
And even with my boyfriend sometimes, I because of my culture, because of the Latino culture, the machismo, sometimes I want to be in control, and I'm like, well, because I'm Latin. Like,
I do see it in the Latin culture, yeah, for sure. In some cultures, I don't know if this is so much Latin. Maybe you can tell me. But I've seen it in other cultures, people won't even smile in photos because that's a sign of weakness.
Yeah. My dad hardly ever. Yeah.
Smiling, isn't that interesting? How we've switched that like being happy is now a weakness.
Yeah.
Being happy and joyful and enjoying a flower is a sign of weakness.
Welcome to my miserable show. I'm here to make you sad. So coming out of high school,
Yeah.
let's go. You're off. You go to college.
Mhm.
I don't know if you went to college.
I did.
Okay.
I was a missionary for 2 years too.
Where are you from?
I'm from San Diego. Yeah,
Okay.
I lived in Gilbert, Arizona for about 5 or 6 years combined.
Okay. So you're a California boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I came back here about 3 years ago.
No, it totally makes sense. Yeah, it totally makes sense. Okay. I just, like, he is a California boy. Sunny and perky, yes. Damn you. Seminary. That's always been an interesting topic for me. Because I don't understand it, but you go somewhere else
Oh yeah,
for a certain time.
Yeah. For about 2 years, we go and we teach people about church and Jesus Christ.
And where did you go?
I went to the Florida. It's called the Florida Tallahassee Mission, or around the area of Tallahassee, Florida.
Okay.
It was kind of the panhandle of Florida and then southern Alabama. So it was. It was the South.
Been through there, yeah. Yeah.
It was very southern South.
Culture class?
Oh yeah.
Even for a white boy.
Oh yeah. and so what I noticed is I grew up in Southern California, where in general, I saw a lot of different colors at church and at school and things like that, and so that wasn't really part of my racism or racial segregation or anything like that. Wasn't really part of my paradigm. I get down there and like, it was pretty eye opening. I honestly, in my young ignorance, I guess, I didn't think that existed anymore. I thought that we were over that.
And what year is this?
This is 2007 to 2009.
Okay.
Now, to be honest, I saw it from both sides, and it wasn't so much that people were actively racist. It was that there was still so much segregation. And now there was racism for sure, but there was just still this segregation of, I'd hear people say like that they didn't want to really talk to us because like, oh no, we don't want to go to a white church. Or something like that, and I was like, white church? Are we a white church? I'm like, oh, I guess we are over here.
Yeah, it's the you versus us kind of mentality.
Which I understand. I get it. People create these, or sustain, I should say, these paradigms because it's safe. Makes them feel safe. and racism is scary. And so we would go into, we would go into a black neighborhood, and they'd be wondering why we were here, and then I'd be wondering why they were wondering why we were there. And so that was interesting for sure. But we made a lot of good friends in those neighborhoods, and we built a lot of bridges, and even had some of them join us in our churches and things.
Was that eye opening?
It was eye opening to me as a Southern California boy, to see that there are other belief systems, even whether they're healthy or not. There are other belief systems out there. I definitely learned to talk to people while I was there, and I definitely learned just how lovely those people can be. I met people in different socioeconomic with different socioeconomic ways of life, and how awesome that they can be, and made a lot of really good friends.
And again, for those of you listening, we want to live in a world where people say, I don't see color, I don't see social status, but we don't live in that world.
Unfortunately, yeah.
We live in this world, and there are levels, whether we want to acknowledge them or not. And I think it's more damaging when you don't acknowledge it, because you're not giving people the respect the respect that they want. You're kind of saying, oh, we're all the same, and we're not all the same.
Yeah. To not acknowledge somebody's differences is often not to acknowledge somebody's strengths or weaknesses.
Yeah.
And also to not acknowledge what they're going through.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. Because when I've had people say that around me, I'm like, well, no, I'm Mexican, and I want you to respect me as a Mexican. I've earned this color. This tan. This is not a tan.
And I've talked to friends before who of other ethnicities, and to say like, oh, well, I don't even see that, or I don't even see that you're black, or I don't even see that. It's like, well, how about you can see it, but just don't see it as bad.
Right. It's not a negative.
Right.
It's not a negative.
You can, or I mean, other races have. I know Mexicans, especially in Southern California, they have racism coming their way too, and it's more that you need, like, let's understand, let's talk, and when I say talk, I mean not an argument over Facebook. I mean, let's talk. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Yes.
Let's talk about it, and because to be honest, I had a friend who opened my eyes to racial issues and things like that I didn't understand were happening.
Yeah.
And now I know. Now I know how hard it actually can be.
This is one of the great things about, not about my show, but about doing this show, is that over the last 6 years, I've met the spectrum of people. And sometimes I'm not always, in the opening, I'm not always thinking like they do, but halfway through I'm kind of going, oh wow, that's just like my family, just a different color and a different geography. And I'm like, oh wow, yeah. So you are just as crazy as I am. Cool. Now we can be friends. And then towards the end, I'm like, I get you. Like, maybe we'll never hang out at coffee together, but I get you, and I'm not so mad at you anymore.
Right.
But all it took is just that hour of conversation sometimes. So I encourage everybody to talk, have a conversation, or come on my show and be interviewed.
Talking is healthy for sure.
I'm going to speed you up a little bit.
Sure.
But when you come back from the seminary...
Yeah. Yeah, LDS mission. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry?
Oh, yeah, it's called, they call it a mission.
Mission, I'm sorry.
Whatever.
Did I say seminary?
Oh, yeah, I did go to seminary in high school, but that was...
I guess because I'm Catholic, I'm thinking church.
No, I get you. No problem.
So you come back
Yeah.
home, and what are you going to do with your life?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I get right back into my life. I started going into school for health and wellness, and that's kind of what got me interested also in people's behavior, because I took psychology classes and I thought they were fascinating. And then I kind of got reeled back into the entertainment business, which is what I did before. I was an actor. But from this point, I got involved with 2 production companies, and things started going really well. I moved over to Utah for a little while to work with a company there. Then I came back to Arizona. Things started going really well. I'm like, okay, so I put I put a hold off on school for a while and started getting back into the entertainment business, and I started producing films. I produced my first film when I was about 27. Or at least I should say co-produced my first film when I was about 27. I started helping films get funded. I started making negotiations that if I brought in the film, the money for the film, that I wanted to be in the film as well. So I would go to the people with the money, and then I'd negotiate. I'm like, okay, I got some money for you, but I want to be in the film. And so then around the end of 2015, I got involved with a company that did live events, and they made me a good offer, and I said, okay, sounds great, and that's what brought me to Orange County. Before, it was kind of a cool time. I do want to mention something that happened. I had I know this sounds like just a kid going through his social problems, but I actually learned a lot from this. I had some friends at the time right before I moved that I had for a while, and for whatever reason, and I wasn't used to this. This hadn't happened for a long time, because after I came back and started going to college, I started feeling very secure about myself and started making a lot of friends and meeting lots of really cool people, including celebrities and things like that. And I was like, everything is kind of pulling itself together. And I had some friends that, for whatever reason, 2 of my really good friends decided to they didn't want to, I don't know why, really, even now. I mean, I guess I have some suspicions, but they decided they didn't want to really hang out with me anymore. Imagine this, you're 2 best friends, and you find out they went on a trip without you. You're like, oh, ouch. Yeah. Like, I didn't hear anything about that. We did everything together. And then seeing them in pictures doing stuff, and I was like, what is going on? I did kind of figure out later that it wasn't necessarily me, that there was maybe there was actually a friend of mine that they didn't really care for, and I guess they thought I was like super best friends with, which we were really close. But and then one of them I could tell was maybe just a little jealous. This was another one of those situations where somebody else's insecurity was, I mean, yes, I had weaknesses too, and I'm sure I did things to, again, offend or annoy, but this is one of those situations where I finally sat down and I said, you know what, I've done this same thing. I have cut off a relationship because I felt like it wasn't healthy to me, or because I felt like it wasn't, or I needed a break from it, or I was becoming exhausted from it. This is one of those cases that I guess I'm just not used to, where I'm the one. I'm the one that they wanted to separate from, and even though I'm not sure why, I finally came to this conclusion. I remember telling my friends about it. A really close friend named Brittany. I just said, you know what? Because she was on my side, and same with another friend I worked with, another actor I worked with, who was actually Ronald McDonald, or at least he was. He's one of the 5 in the country. There's 5 Ronald McDonalds.
Wow! So I'm 1 degree from.
And I remember telling them about it, and they were all about oh, you don't need friends like that. Forget them. That's messed up. And I was like, well, you know what? Actually, I'm I appreciate the support. I don't think they're doing anything wrong. And to finally admit that was ugh. It's me. It's not my fault. I don't like to use that word, but it's my personality that they are pushed away from, or it's something I did that made them do this. I have to be okay with that. I am doing my best, and I'm really sorry. I will try and do better next time.
And this is kind of a full circle conversation to what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Just I need to check myself and get back on track.
Right. Just because we do something that hinders our happiness or hinders our success doesn't mean that there's something wrong with us. It just means there's an adjustment we can make. Okay. And those adjustments are great, but usually what it means is we have to be super vulnerable and be willing to say, I have responsibility in this. I have something that I get to fix.
It's like changing a tire where the lug nuts are really tight.
Yeah.
And you have to struggle with it for a while. That's what it feels like to me. You're like, ugh.
It feels like when you're sick and you know it's coming and finally you just let it go.
Yeah, mine was a little less disgusting than the throw up one. I like yours better.
You feel so much better afterwards, though.
It does. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Taking responsibility and taking the power back, you're like, okay, so if there's something that I can do, then that means that there's something that I can do.
Yeah, it's so stressful when if you're sitting there and you know that there's something and yet you're still fighting it. I think it's more energy to try to blame other people for your doings.
So much more energy.
And
because deep down you know it's not true.
Yeah, and in the end it's just going to come back to you. So just for those of you listening or watching, sit down, analyze, and not that you're wrong or that you did anything incorrect or you need to change everything about you. Maybe there was just that one little thing that just sidestepped. You colored out outside the box that one time and you weren't supposed to. Just get back on track. It doesn't mean we can't be rebels or do whatever you want, but everything has consequences, and we have to remember that.
Yeah, of course.
All right, cool. So I want to get up to your videos, your live shows and stuff, because that's when I connected with you. How does you're in entertainment and you're doing public speaking, and you start talking a little bit about, because you share stuff about your life on these videos. How does that come about, or where does that need come from?
So, well, actually, it was interesting. I had gone live a few times on my page, but really not too often. In fact, to be honest, when I was looking at the way Facebook works, the algorithms kind of really hurt my page. You know, they really, as they started making it less and less visible, it really hurt my page. But I would every now and then, mostly what I made my page for was to build an audience, because I'm in entertainment and a comedian. And so it was mostly for entertainment, and I still use it for that. One day after seeing, it was actually, believe it or not, it was after watching The Greatest Showman. I loved The Greatest Showman. I absolutely loved it. But the biggest thing about it is that I was going through a lot with my own self, where I was really not feeling good about myself. Just a few things that happened in my life where it left me pretty defeated. And I was looking at The Greatest Showman, and I was like, you know what? that's what matters. The coolest thing about that show was just how close all those people were, and how even though they all had something that made them different or an outcast, they were a family together. And I was like, this is how the world needs to be. I wish the world was like this. And it got me thinking about other things. I'm like, what can I do to make the world more like this? What I noticed is, and then I went live for other reasons, and we ended up talking. I told people about The Greatest Showman, and I told people about, like, you know, how happy I was. At least I think this is how it started. I think I went live a few times talking about other things like this, but what I started noticing was that my followers didn't just care about comedy. They and a lot of times I think people turn to comedy because they're going through something hard and they need some sort of relief. But they really resonated with what I was talking about as far as things that I usually talk about with public speaking, which is leadership and feeling good about yourself and being vulnerable and self-discovery. They loved it. And so I was like, we should keep doing this because I enjoy it just as much as they do, to be able to deliver what I've learned and then to hear their interesting feedback. There's a lot of I mean, my followers are pretty smart. There's a lot of really it's amazing what a lot of them who were going through depression or anxiety or just some sort of chronic mental illness, it's amazing how wise they become because of it really makes you think about what you're thinking and about what other people are thinking when you're going through some sort of mental crisis.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things. There's a saying that the saddest people make the funniest clowns, or something like that.
What do you think about the comedy?
Yeah.
I was being bored.
And I watched the Greatest Showman flying back from Chicago, and I was bawling on the plane, just bawling.
My eyes leaked a little.
I was like, oh my God.
When
I get you. I understand you. Well, that's when I connected with you. And we talked about it a little bit earlier. And this is where if my voice cracks, it's because it's really cold in here. Not 'cause you're crying. I was going through my followers know that cancer and then my colostomy surgery, and that caused a lot of mental stuff and body image, which I'm still dealing with. But I was going through some really the worst. I've suffered from depression since I was young, but this was the worst it ever gotten, and I didn't have a way to get out of it, or I couldn't find a way to get out of it because I couldn't drive. I wasn't able to drive. I couldn't just get out and walk around because I didn't have the energy for it. Laguna could be a little isolating sometimes. And then I found your video, and again, where we went through, I was like, oh, cool. And then you started talking about this, and then people were chiming in, and I was like, yes, these are my people. These are my people, which I was so sad that you weren't doing them as regular anymore, but I won't talk about that right now, because there was you formed a community. I don't know that this is something you don't know, and I'm probably preaching to the choir, but you formed a little community because I expected to see certain people on the thread, and there was like, hey you. I mean, for a moment there we kind of ignored you, and we're all saying hi to each other, and you know, like, and you expect the people to show up. And that was my moment. I'm like, these people are showing up, not for me, but they like me.
Right.
And that was like, right now I don't like myself, and I need them to like me. I need, not because I anything wrong with me, but I need them to like me because I don't like me at all. And then you would come on, and you had this energy. And again, I talked about like something would fumble or something would go wrong, and you just played it off. And I was like, oh my God, that's like me on camera sometimes. Like, something went wrong, folks. Don't worry, everything's good.
I remember trying to bring my friend Mark in, and it just wasn't working. I'm like, all right, I guess we're not going to have him.
Yeah, and then the first time you brought me on to share my story a little bit, and the amount of, I mean, chills, but people underestimate, I think, the power of the internet. because the love that I got, and it was mostly ladies. Those ladies messaged me, private messaged me, and they were like, "You're gonna get through this. You're gonna," and it was just the love that I needed, and I was like, "Oh my God, thank you." And not that I wasn't getting it from my friends, but it was just they didn't. I felt like they didn't. Again, my depression. They didn't understand my depression, and all of a sudden, there was this group of people that had bought their depression at the same store that I bought mine. And it was like, oh my God, you have the same edition. Let's compare. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And I didn't expect so many. I didn't expect so many people, and not to say that everyone on there was suffering from some sort of
Right.
clinically diagnosed depression or anything, or non-diagnosed depression, but everybody resonates with going through a really, really hard time. And so I didn't expect so many people there to be going through that, and to be actually suffering from that. I didn't realize how common it was.
Yeah. What did those live feeds do for you?
What did those live feeds do for me? I looked forward to the live feeds because for me it was a sense of community too. And even though I don't feel like I don't know that I've ever suffered as bad as other people have when it comes to depression and anxiety. Maybe I do, and I just don't realize it. But there's some people that have it, and it's almost life-ending or completely life-obstructing, success-obstructing. And I haven't found that, though I haven't found that in my own life, though maybe to an extent. I loved that what I had to share, and I was humbled by the fact that I had something to share, and that thing that I had to share was changing lives, and it was getting people through their day, and it was helping people understand what they were going through. Number one, that they're not alone, which really is what people want to know. I think people can get through anything if they understand that they're not alone. And to know that I was able to bring people together, and me and my limited experience, my limited knowledge, but having gone through enough to really understand a few things, and just to know that I had something to give, got me through the day. I would end those sessions, and I'd feel so good because it gave me an opportunity to reach out to other people that I had never really thought about before. I remember one time giving. This is when I was a lot younger. I was probably like 22 or 23. I was a waiter, and I left a restaurant, and I had been really thinking about my life a lot. And I saw this homeless woman. She was pushing a shopping cart. She seemed to be homeless, and she came into the restaurant. I was already off. I was actually walking to my car, and I stopped, and I was like, I just really felt like I should go give her some money. She didn't even ask for it, and so I stopped, and I went over, and I gave her. I went in there, and she's like, "Oh, I'll have a coffee." I was like, "Oh, well, actually," I was like, "Actually, I'm not going to be your waiter today. I'm going to be leaving, but I just wanted to leave this with you. Is that okay?" And I just gave her a $10 bill, and she said, "Yeah, that's fine." and she wasn't like grateful or didn't display gratitude, but I remember going back into my car and just feeling so good because I had. In fact, some of my greatest moments where I just feel that big hug, whether you believe it's from God or whether you believe it's just the way that nature works, I personally believe it's a nice little God hug. Yeah. And I felt so good that I started crying. And this has happened a couple times in my life where when I reach out to help somebody else, immediately and they call it, I think the saying goes, when in doubt, focus out. I don't think we were meant to do it alone, but we isolate ourselves, which makes it worse. I don't think that humans are creatures that are meant to go through their life and deal with things alone. But we do that because we're afraid of criticism, or I don't know what we're afraid of rejection. So then we isolate ourselves, and it's like enclosing a fire in an iron gate. It just gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and rather than letting that energy go and being vulnerable. I found that when I reach out to other people, it helps me to be more successful and happy. happy, and so I continue to do it.
Yeah, there's a couple of stories that I can throw in there, but I'll tell you in private. But one of the things that I learned, and I learned a lesson similar to that when I was doing my cancer videos, when I started doing a video blog the day I was diagnosed with cancer, and I did it for 31 days. But the best received videos were the ones where I'm sitting here pretty much in the dark, just bawling and so tired and frustrated and mad and letting people just see in there and go, I don't feel good. I'm not going to pretend I feel good. Because I criticize everybody that's like, oh, my aunt had cancer and she was happy all the time. She never suffered. I'm like, BS.
You just didn't see it.
Yeah, she just didn't do it for you. You're a wuss. But she suffered in silence. And I'm like, I'm not that strong. I'm going to suffer and let everybody know. But people were messaging me going, thank you. Because I think we have a very similar path where I took this thing like, I'm going to lead.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's going to follow me, but I'm going to lead. And then you look back and you're like, oh wow, some people actually believe what I'm selling, and that's pretty cool. But I believe it, so they believe it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it was nice to hear people saying, we're so glad that you're not super. That you have your weaknesses. And I always tell them, like, even Superman has kryptonite, so what can we say about ourselves?
Yeah.
And I totally believe God has some plan. There's my older sister made a joke after my last almost death experience with cancer.
The last one.
Yeah. We counted. I've almost died like 5 times in my life. And
a lot of insight that comes with that too.
And my older sister made like a snarky joke after the last one. She's like, "Don't you know how to die?" And I was like, "Obviously not." She's like, "God must have." She was very more religious than me. She's like, God must have some big plan for you. I'm like, well, I wish you would tell me. Like, where's the burning bush? Like,
I'm listening.
Yeah. Like, just send me an email. Send me a text. I guess this is my way of saying thank you. Thank you for what you did. I don't know that, again, I don't really know that you know the scope of what you put out there. I don't know that I can explain it. But watching you just come on and share your stories, even when you were having a crappy day, even when trees were falling.
Oh, yeah.
You can tell about that in a minute. You still put on a smile, and I thought, he gets it. He gets it, because even when one of my jokes about anal cancer, when I told people I had anal cancer, I'm like, don't worry, it's behind me now. It was a pain in the ass at the moment, but I'm okay now. And they're like, oh my God, yeah, I can sit down and think about it. And people just crack up. I'm like, that's my butt jokes for my cancer. Like, you got to make fun of it. God has some plan, and if you criticize God before the plan is over, then you miss out. And I don't want to miss out. I want to be part of that. I want to laugh at the end and not be miserable. For sure. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And the thing that comes to my mind is, another thing that I remember thinking about was, I don't think that we have any reason to really despair. And I think that not to say that disparagement, is that a word? Disparagement is unfounded or isn't justified. I think that we get sad and we get disparaged, but I think the ultimate goal for me is to get to the point where no matter what happens, I don't lose hope in something. No. And so a lot of times the reason people are able to laugh about something is because it's not bringing them down anymore. Like, yes, this is happening, but there's no reason why I have to feel bad or why I have to feel bad about myself. Yeah.
I tell people that because I do energy work and card readings and Reiki energy on people. And I always tell them, I'm like, get mad. It's okay. Get mad. Get a little mad. Have some emotions on it.
Or at least acknowledge it.
Yeah. I'm like, if you want to yell, yell. Get it out of your system. Get frustrated. Cuss if you want to. Blame everybody for a moment. But then get back on it and get back on the road and just keep going. Because you're not going to find out what the purpose of this was unless you get to the end. And I am, after everything my body's been through, my mind has been through, and God has been very good to me. God, I believed by the time I turned 30 that God was like, okay, we're done with you. Like, this is the end of it. Because that's when I was diagnosed with AIDS and I almost died. I thought God was like, okay, we're done. And I still have this feeling that he's going to knock on my door in a minute and go, you're past your date? Like, did you know you were due 15 years ago? What the hell? Not that I think God would help it. I don't know. Maybe he would.
Wow, you don't know how to die. 15 years, that's a long time.
yeah. And yeah, I don't. I've learned a lot of things, but I didn't learn that. God has been very good with me, and he's blessed me with many things. The universe treats me so well and opens so many doors, even when I don't feel. And this morning I posted on Twitter, like, I feel like I need to go the extra mile today, but I only have enough energy for like a couple of feet, and that's all I have. But you have recharged me this morning. I'm an uber fan of yours.
Thank you so much.
And this is going to sound like a not compliment, but it's a compliment. Not necessarily for all the work that you do, but because of you. I'm a fan of you, of the energy you put out there, of the energy that you give to people, the energy that you gave me, and pause. I really, I don't know that you'll ever know how much your presence on my computer meant to me. So for whatever it's worth, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're absolutely welcome. That's a big compliment.
So with that, I'm having a moment over here, people. You're crying. I'm not crying. All right, so we're kind of going over time, but I'm going to keep you for a couple more minutes. There's a part of my show where my guest shares some words of wisdom with my listeners and viewers. Okay. What words of wisdom do you have for the folks?
Oh, sure. Should I look at the camera?
Yes.
Right.
Now you get to look at the camera.
Right. Hi. Words of wisdom. I would say, especially now, some of my words of wisdom usually would be, I'm going to say this again. my words of wisdom would be, usually when you think something is really, really bad, it's not as bad as it looks. And usually when you see something that's going to be really, really hard, it's usually not as hard as it's not as hard as it looks. Especially if we're doing it together. Life is so much easier and so much better and so much more joyful when we get through it together. And if you start to feel that something is horrible and you start to feel bad about yourself and that things aren't good, talk to somebody, because you'll find it's actually so much of what we believe about ourselves is negative is totally a lie. There are people that will love you. There are people that will help you, and you are not as alone as you think you are in whatever you're going through. And those are my words of wisdom, and I hope that they help you as much as they've helped me.
Cool. What message would you give you before you went on your mission? If you go back in time.
Oh, before I went on my mission?
Yeah. Oh. Well, if you can go back, and I'm gonna mispronounce your name because I forget where to put the accent on your name.
It's like
Jarom.
Jarom, yeah. It's Jarom. Like Jeremy with no Y.
So if you go back and see Jarom before he goes off on his mission, what message would you give him?
I would say that no matter what you think of other people, love them as much as you can. And don't be afraid to love someone based on what other people might think of you.
Cool. Most important lesson you've learned in your life so far?
So many important lessons. I would say probably the most important lesson I've learned in my life is that no matter what other people think of me, everyone is doing their best. And that means me too. So I shouldn't feel bad about myself because I haven't reached perfection yet. But really appreciate what I have learned and those around me who do support me no matter what state of mind I'm in.
Now tell me what happened with this tree on your car.
Okay. So I'm at Costco.
It was at Costco?
It was at Costco, yeah. I was visiting a friend, and I was visiting a lot of friends over in Arizona where I used to live. I made some really good friends there, and we had just went and visited my friend who's a firefighter there, and he got called away. And when we went outside, we realized why he got called away. There was this giant, I don't think it actually is called a haboob, but people call it a haboob. It's this big dust storm. This huge dust storm is coming. It's very common in the Arizona monsoon season. We see it coming. We're like, whoa. We park our car, and here a big dust storm is coming, and I park next to a tree. I didn't even think about it. We parked there. We went inside. Actually, I have video footage of it on my page. Maybe not yet, but this huge storm comes through. Like everyone is gathered around the entrance because they're looking at the storm that's coming to the Costco. Wind is blowing in. Shopping carts are being pushed into Costco, and a trash can lid, not like a, like your typical trash can lid, like a residential trash can lid, but one of those big ones that goes on you. It's like the big plastic one, flies over this woman's head. And there's this huge storm. 18 trees went down in that parking lot, and one of them fell on my car.
Wow.
Luckily, it was like a little Palo Verde tree, but
it still did anything?
It still got right on my hood.
Wow. So did you get in your car yet?
Oh, it's not. It's repairable.
Oh, okay.
It's repairable, and my insurance will
cover it. All right.
I have to pay the doctor.
Good for you. But that's if you share that video, because I saw it, and I'll post it so you guys can see the story. So you have to go to my page on Facebook, so check that out. But that's one of the examples of no matter what, you were still laughing about it. You're like, all like.
Everyone has their time.
All the places.
When something happens like that, like I've kind of learned to get in the mode of like, it was my turn. Everybody has money stolen from them. Everybody has, something break, and this was my turn. So let's laugh about it.
So I definitely have somebody that I can write to and say, hey, this is what happened to me today. Again, thank you. Tell folks where they can find you.
Oh, sure. You can find me on Instagram at Jarom Smith, JAROMSMITH. You can also find me on Facebook.com/RealJaromSmith. There's not a lot of Jarom Smiths out there, so it's pretty easy to find me. Yeah. You'll usually see me wearing a blue shirt with my hands on my hips, kind of going like this. And you can also find me on YouTube if you look up Jarom Smith. Cool.
Again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming over. I know I haunted you for about a year, and I was like, this guy's going to think I'm a stalker, but I didn't care. Thank you for making the effort to come over here. I really appreciate it. For everybody listening, I've had Jarom Smith on my show today. He is a public speaker, entertainer. Go check him out. All his information will be on the page. I want to, as usual, thank my producer, Mr. Kevin Morris, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Go check us out at normalentertainment.com. You can find all the shows on the network. You can find all of my old shows there. And the theme song, I want to thank Ryan Kalama. He is my co-writer, and he produced the song for me, so I'm very excited about that. Also, check us out at Facebook, Put It Together Podcast. Go check out the show, like the page, so you can get notifications when the new shows come out. I think that's it. For anything else, send me an email. Find me on all the other social sites, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, where you'll find this video. For now, thank you. I was going to call you Jarom again. Jarom. Thank you, Jarom. This is Daniel Garza saying, hey, put it together.
This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together.
Subscribe to Put It Together on iTunes, Stitcher, and at abnormalentertainment.com/putittogether. Find Put It Together on Facebook and tweet Daniel at Lil Messican, LILMESICAN. And for more podcasts, comics, books, movies, and more, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.